Hey everyone, it's Andy with The Wedding Biz. So I had an opportunity to talk with David Stark, wonderful planner designer out of New York City, works worldwide on really major events. He's been on the show twice before. Absolutely fantastic guest. Highly recommend that you check out those episodes, and we'll have links in the show notes. But anyway, David also has a very large organization, 54 employees, and does an enormous amount of business. And so I wanted to get his take on how he's handling the impact of the pandemic, both personally and business-wise. And so, we really get deep into it. I think you're going to get a lot out of this, as well as some ideas on how to handle this, not just personally, but with your business and with your teams. And so enjoy this bonus episode with David Stark. David, it is really good to have you on here. I guess we're both in quarantine at this moment.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. This whole thing is so surreal, isn't it?
It's pretty wild. But, honestly, through the magic of technology, we can be together like this. And that's a fun thing, too.
Yeah. No, I love this. And, it's interesting, knowing that we were going to have this call today and that it would really be about dealing with the whole impact of the coronavirus and, on you personally and also with business. I was listening to the Howard Stern show yesterday, and he had Adam Levine on from Maroon 5, and Adam was performing. He also had cameras on so we could do the video. And it was really interesting because Sheryl Crow has done this, Edwin McCain, tons of artists are performing. And, like Adam, for example, was dressed in a robe, and it was just very casual in a makeshift area in his basement. And all these other people, Sheryl Crow, everyone's just in their homes, no makeup, no hair people, none of that. And it's interesting to me, there's a real natural, obviously, vibe about it that is really feels good. And I'm almost thinking that this might turn into a trend when business comes back, that there's a more down-to-earth groundedness to it. That struck me really big yesterday.
My grandfather used to say when I was growing up that every man puts on his pants one leg at a time.
Yeah.
And it was something that I always think about, but think about even more so these days for everything that you're saying. I mean, all of these superstars, they're people too, and they're quarantined too, and they're in their house too, and they're dealing with all of the same things that we're all dealing with. I don't know if that's comforting or not comforting, but it's good to know that, it's leveling the playing field. And one of the things that I've actually found to be, call it a silver lining or call it lemonade. I don't want to live like this forever and ever and ever, but there is a simplicity about it that's actually not unappealing.
Yeah.
I realize how much less I truly need, right?
Right.
And I recognize that part of the joys of this are actually connecting with people and talking. And, I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. We can't run to a restaurant. We can't run to the hot new whatever. So it's really about those connections and really trying to get into the head and heart space of, how are you doing? How are you faring with all of this? And eliminating all the extra stuff that sometimes get in the way of actually having a true relationship.
Yeah, it really gets to the heart of it. It's interesting when people say, how are you doing? I'm not going to say, oh, fine. No one's doing that right now. You're right. It's really fostering these deeper, more connected conversations. And it's interesting. I'm still pretty busy, but there's some slowdown, and I'm able to, I take some walks. I try to take a walk every day. I don't necessarily get to that. I'm staying right now for the next month or whatever it's going to be with my girlfriend. We're having every day, we're saying, let's at least have a 20, 30 minute lunch together. Would normally never have anything like that.
Are you exercising?
Yeah, I think that's really important to keep the morning routine. And so when this first was happening, before the shelter in place rule came on and all the businesses closed, I went out and bought some hand weights, because normally I go to a gym. I have an elliptical, so the elliptical, hand weights, I meditate every morning. I'm keeping that same routine, which I think is really critical for all of us. And another routine that I'm starting, which I didn't really do before, is toward the late afternoon, sometimes into early evening, I'm FaceTiming with 2 or 3 friends, and and FaceTiming. I didn't always do that before. And I'm reaching out to people that I haven't spoken to in years and years and years. And it's really, again, it helps with this groundedness, which I feel I need, that we all need while we're going through this crazy, scary, vulnerable place that we're all in.
It's a real equalizer. I mean, where the playing field has been really knocked out from under us, and
yeah,
there is something good about the simplicity of it all. I do really hold to that.
Is there anything you've learned about yourself since it started that's new for you?
I think what I said before, like that I truly need less. I don't need as much stuff as I thought I needed, and I don't need as
right.
many activities as I thought I needed, and I don't need to go to as many places. I'm a person who, I could be on a desert island by myself, and I would be so busy from sun up and sun down. I'd move the sand from one side of the island to the other every day.
Right.
So I'm not a person who is bored, but living in and loving New York City, I mean, one of the things that I love about it is that there are just so many things to do. And so, come a weekend, if I'm here, the desire to run to, 3 museums, a show, some sort of music, see 29 friends, go to, 4 restaurants, exercise, see family, you can't do it all. You're as busy being off from work as you are at being at work. And what this time period is reinforcing is that one can be content with less, and one doesn't need to run to find enjoyment. You can actually find that inside of you.
Yeah, I agree. In the very beginning, it felt more difficult. I think we were all, first of all, we were in shock. All of us were collectively in shock. And then making that adjustment to like sheltering in place. And yeah, now I've got my situation set up. Again, I'm back in my routine. So it is interesting that the simplicity, I agree with that. It'll be interesting to see how much we all keep of that once we've gotten past this. What were your days like? Well, you just described in terms of the social part, but for your business, what were your days like business-wise during the day? And what is it like now as far as your business, that part of it?
My normal day would be running from meeting to meeting to meeting, whether they are in my office or whether they are out of my office or whether they're in my office and out of my office. They would be back to back to back.
Yeah.
I would generally start the day somewhere, and I recognize I'm a little bit of a maniac, so I'm not proposing that this is right for everybody, but my personal days would start somewhere in the 4:30 to 5 in the morning.
Wow.
Place where I would get up, and for a whole bunch of hours, or from 4:30 till 7, I would do work on my computer quietly. It was a time in which I was not pulled in a million directions. I was not getting a million emails. I could clear my head. I could write. It's a time where I would spend a lot of time writing. I would go to the gym at 7 a.m. I'd work out for an hour. I'd frantically get dressed, have breakfast, run for a day of running around.
Yeah.
If it was an event day, it was a combination of meetings plus the install plus the event. If it was not an event day, it was lots of meetings, in part planning, in part design, all of the things that I'm heavily involved in. And that would go sometimes until midnight, or that would go until 8 o'clock in the evening or 7:30 in the evening, or anywhere in between midnight and those times. And now I'm actually, I'm not getting up at 4:30, but I am getting up somewhere between 5 and 6. And I am utilizing that time period between 5 and, let's call it 7:30, to answer emails, to write, to focus my day, to focus my head. I work out. I'm not going to the gym, but I live in a building in Brooklyn Heights that is tall. It's 25 stories. And so I'm using the staircase of the building as my own personal stairmaster.
Great idea.
And I do 5 laps of going up and down of the 25 flights every day except for Sunday.
Geez, David, I'm impressed.
It takes about an hour to do 5 laps.
Yeah.
I've graduated to 6 laps in the last couple of days.
Wow.
And then I also do push-ups and abs and all kinds of other things on the steps. And so I've turned those steps into my little personal gym. And that has helped me keep a routine and feel healthier, because when I'm not doing that, I'm eating nonstop all day long.
Right.
So the gravitation to the refrigerator in the cabinet is a little overwhelming. That is a big difference between my former life and my new life.
Yeah, thank God you're working it off, though, at the same time.
And then, one of the things that has changed in my daily routine. So my team and I gather every morning at 10 a.m. on a Zoom call, and every morning we have a town hall. And that's been really, really wonderful. We would not formerly meet every day. And so what this is delivering is, a transparency and a sense of community and an involvement in everybody on all of the different details that, before they might have known exactly what was going on in each of their projects, but they might have not known what was going on globally. I mean, prior we would have a quarterly company-wide town hall meeting, but this innovation has been working really well for us to get centered, to have everybody talk about things that are on their mind, things that are challenges. We talk a lot about what also are successes, and we start the day each day doing that. And we're going to, I don't know that when we're out of quarantine, are we going to do it every day, but we're going to definitely do it once a week.
And you didn't do that before?
Correct.
Okay, interesting.
So that's a learning. That is definitely something that is, lemonade coming out of these giant piles of lemons that we're going to, take forward. And honestly, my day-to-day is to really look at all of this and say to myself, what can we learn from this? And what can we take out of this that's actually truly positive? And, how can we evolve our workplace going forward based upon what we've learned during this time period? I think there's going to be good things that come out of it. There's a lot of terrible things about it. There's no question about that. But, it's my preference to look at things from the standpoint of what's that silver lining? How can we make lemonade? What can we build upon from what we've learned here?
Are there some things already that you've figured out, even though it just started recently for your company, that will be new in that sense?
Being more nimble.
Yeah.
As we had grown formerly, teams got more and more siloed and people became specialists, and now we've had to figure out how to become more nimble and how to wear more hats. We are not dissimilar to many other businesses in that we've had to make some hard choices in terms of tightening our belts. And so we're doing more with a smaller team right now. My goal is to have that be a temporary situation, but I'm constantly reminded and humbled by the idea that before we had a single employee, I was the producer. Before we had a single designer, I was the designer. Before we had a single coordinator, I was the coordinator. So I know how to do all of these things. They were what I did when it was just me or just me and a single partner. So, getting back to the roots of what drew me into this in the first place, which was the combination of, bold, creative opportunity and, customer service that I am really into. It's humbling and also exciting in a weird way to get back to the core of having to wear all of those hats again.
Oh, so you're taking on some of those responsibilities you had previously delegated.
Well, I'm in the trenches with a smaller team doing it. So sure, I'm wearing some of those hats as well. Yeah. And it's a great reminder of what it takes to do the work. And, I'm not above doing anything. I'll sweep the truck and I'll clean out the bathroom if need be.
Right.
If that's whatever it takes to make something successful, I am more than happy to do.
So you had, if I remember correctly, and for everyone listening, you were on the show twice, and both interviews I recommend everyone. We'll have links in the show notes because they're wonderful. But you had, if I remember, 50 employees, right?
Yeah, about 54.
So did you furlough? Can I ask specifically what you've done?
Yes. We furloughed 37 of the employees.
Wow.
And then with another group for a temporary time period, reduced hours down to 2 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then there have been some pay cuts across the board. And everybody as a community, as a team, as an organization has been very generous to work together to weather the storm. And it's not without sacrifice on anybody's front. I'm happy to go without compensation myself. My job at this point is really to work as hard as I possibly can, be as inventive as I possibly can to keep the team together in any way that I possibly can.
So what kind of things are you working on? And I'm curious how you are handling the weddings that were on the books, the corporate events, the nonprofits. I know you do a lot of nonprofits. I'm wondering how you deal with each of those segments and what you are working on in the time being.
So I'm blessed in that everything is not canceled. So I have an awful lot of things that have canceled, but I have a certain amount of things that have rebooked for later in the year, a certain amount of things that have moved to next year. But it is true that there is not a single event between now and the end of the summer, which for all intents and purposes is a long time. 5 or 6 months to shoulder the expenses of a whole organization and not have, a penny coming in is a long time to do that. But we feel blessed that we have an awful lot of things going on for the fall. I can break it down into segments. We have some non-for-profit fundraising events that have been out and out canceled.
Yes.
We have some that were actually already in the fall, and they are holding their course for what they were planning to do. We have some for the spring that are moving to the fall. And we have a couple of even, percolating things that we don't actually have yet that we're always intending to happen in late fall and did not make a choice yet of the location that they were going to be at. And we're in the process of trying to figure that out for them as well. As tragic as this whole crisis has been for individuals and their jobs, it's as tragic for all of the non-for-profit organizations. When you think about the Metropolitan Museum of Art being closed until July at the cost of $100 million,
wow,
that's pretty significant. That money, doesn't grow on trees. And that's coming from both fundraising and foundations, and also the ticket sales and sales at the bookstore and sales at cafes. And when they don't have those people coming through the doors, they have an awful lot of people on their payroll to pay, and they have an awful lot of heat and electricity bills that they have to take care of that artwork, regardless of whether they're open or not. They've got insurance to pay. I mean, their expenses don't go away either. So they need to make money. And so the organizations who utilize fundraising events as a core, they need to figure out inventive ways to be able to ride this storm and get those events going again. So we're very involved in that process. And, it's both strategic and it's both calendar, it's also calendar based. And sometimes it's about rethinking what an event should look like in the post-COVID world. And sometimes it's about trying to navigate what will ultimately be a very packed fall with organizations competing with each other for dollars and audiences in time periods which they normally wouldn't be working within. So that's one segment. Social events, weddings, bar mitzvahs, birthday parties, I'm finding that they're either moving to the fall or moving to next year. Some of it has to do with when does it feel an appropriate time to send an invitation. So if you were going to have an event in June, and maybe, although we don't know, maybe we would be over the challenges by then, and it could conceivably be an okay time to celebrate a milestone. Does it feel okay to be sending out a fancy invitation at the height of the crisis going on now? And I think we're all probably in agreement that it doesn't feel great to be doing that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And does it feel okay to be celebrating during times where people are either struggling financially or they're struggling from a health perspective? So I think that most people are feeling that the fall feels like a safe time. And I'm a big proponent of encouraging the idea that after we're all isolated for so long, it's important to get back together.
Yeah.
It's important to show solidarity. It's important to have community. It's important to celebrate milestones. It's important to celebrate life. And I got into this in the first place because I wanted to interact with people and because I wanted to celebrate things that were important milestones in a person's life. And that doesn't change for me, virus or no virus. And I am determined to lead the charge to get back to a place where that's something that we hold in very high regard. And that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be things that evolve in terms of how do we make people feel comfortable at an event? How do we message things properly? How do we find ways of having people gather that are safe? That doesn't mean that all of those things won't evolve, but it's important to get people back together.
I agree. If you were mentoring a group of people with less experience, planners, designers, florists, photographers, what would you recommend that people think about now in terms of either restructuring their businesses, just dealing with this? There are a lot of people out there. I mean, look, you and I went through the recession, 2008. We have some experience. What would you recommend to people that they think about and do?
One of the things that I think about a lot and that I talk about a lot too, good, bad, whatever, we're old enough now to realize that these major moments that happen, that when you're in the midst of them, you actually think, oh my God, there's never going to be life after this. There's absolutely going to be life after this. I mean, I think about the fall of Lehman Brothers. I think about September 11th. I think about the AIDS crisis. I think about a lot of major world-shifting moments that in the midst of them, we thought this was the end of life as we know it.
That's right.
And the truth is, humans are tenacious individuals. There will be life after this.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that there won't be an evolution of thought. That doesn't mean that there won't be new ways of doing things, but there will absolutely be great new things that come out of this. And I would encourage everybody to be a leader in being part of ushering in that change. We could all sit around and bemoan the loss of this job or that job, or we can think about how do we harness the energy of now and turn it into something that's good. I don't have the answer. I don't have the solution for how to do that. Everybody has to look within to find that in themselves. But I personally feel that I refuse to be shut down or to be dictated that I can't do things. I would rather come up with the solutions for how I can do them against or in relation to restrictions that come about, or in relation to, what's the word I'm looking for? Not restrictions, but there's parameters. There's parameters on everything. The limitations. Breed innovation.
That's right. Right.
My entire career has been about limitations, whether it was budget, whether it was politics. There has never been a time where somebody gave me a blank check and said, David, here's a blank check. Do whatever you want.
Right.
We've made our best work when we've been reactive to the limitations that have been laid out for us. And if somebody said to me, do whatever you want, I wouldn't have a single solitary idea.
I love that. Wow. It's interesting too, for me. I mean, I have a business partner now on the music side, and, where we're making various adjustments, but also as part, I don't remember if we spoke about this in the beginning of this or before we hit the record button. I also keep a morning routine, and I'm staying really calm so that I can come up with creative ideas to effectively deal with this. And I think it's a great opportunity to, in some ways, reinvent ourselves. And so I'm not ready to announce it right now. I might be able to in a couple of weeks, but I came up with a whole idea connected to the podcast, to the Wedding Biz, to expand the business and to do something extremely exciting. It would be a game changer for me. If it weren't, I'm still not happy with that the virus is here. Believe me, I'm not happy with the pandemic. But because of this, it has created, because of this limitation, as you say, it has created a space for me to come up with some ideas that I'm taking action on that would never have happened otherwise.
I think that's fantastic. I mean, this is an opportunity for reflection, and it's an opportunity for invention.
Yeah.
We're delivered these opportunities when we least expect them. You can't plan on them.
Right.
You could maybe, if you're an artist and you apply for an artist residency and you get to go to the MacDowell colony for a month and you have the luxury to, have a picnic basket delivered to your door. And throughout that day, you're dreaming about how to innovate. And that's a brilliant, brilliant thing. And I always regret that I never got a chance to do that when I was a painter. But you have to take these opportunities that come when you least expect them and turn them into lemonade. And, if every time we were delivered a blow, we succumbed, I mean, just walking out of your door every day, there are mini blows. You go to the bank and somebody looked at you sideways. That's a little mini blow. I mean, if you allowed every blow to take you down, it would be a hard world to navigate. So this is a giant, 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 giant blow. And we're all being dealt that hand in very, very different ways. And I don't minimize that in any way. I mean, I also, I'm talking like Pollyanna, but I've had really big blows too with all of this. I mean, I'm making it sound like my business is rainbows and unicorns. I'm suffering from the same thing that everybody else is.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out how you have a choice. You have a choice to either bask in the gloom or harness the energy of opportunity. And I would only choose harness the energy of opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on at this time. And maybe as we're going through the recovery, we'll have you back on again, because I love especially the sentiment about how we want to encourage essentially people to get back and celebrate and hopefully not hold back with that. And so I think that's going to be really important when the time comes, because the time will come. We are going to get past this.
Absolutely. And when it happens, we're going to have a big giant party.
Yeah, hell yeah.
When it is time for that big giant party, I'm raising my hand to design and plan it. It would be my pleasure to do so.
And I'll do the music.
Perfect.
There we are. All right, Dave. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Be well.